I woke up today and I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. And then I saw a tweet from Jake Burns that was interesting to me, which is he said, "We will waste a lot of trivial off-air season topics, myself included, when things really just boil down to Deshaun Watson being elite again or not." And I think this is probably the truest thing anybody has said about, honestly, a football team, period. But we forget or sense it's so much on one person's performance. We don't want to act like it's only that, right? We want to say things like it's a team game, right? And to a point, it does matter that it's a team game. But the quarterback's the most important position on the team. It's the highest paid position on the team for a reason. It is what it is, right? When we want to give quarterbacks the excuse, we'll say it's a team game. When we don't want to give quarterbacks the excuse, we'll say, hey, it's a quarterback league, right? But a lot of your season, a lot of the Browns season, and a lot of the gamble in the Browns season isn't, hey, can we get the right defensive tackle next to Myles Garrett? No, the gamble is, can Deshaun Watson be elite again? Now, there are going to be some people who are going to try to argue the premise that Deshaun Watson was never elite. To those people, I would say he's led the league in passing yards, which I admit, like Jameis Winston has done, but what Jameis Winston has not done, he's a 3-time Pro Bowler. He's somebody who is ranked at the top 5 in Pro Football Focus, the top 10 consistently in his career when it comes to quarterback grades. He is a legitimate dude. If you guys watched me last year, y'all remember I did charts like this, right? A lot of these charts where I was grading a bunch of quarterbacks and grading what they did in their career, how many good games versus bad games did they give you, and how likely they were, or what was the number that you needed from these guys to be able to win a championship with them, right? So, there's Jimmy Garoppolo here, and then there's Derek Carr, and there's all these guys' numbers. And, I did a lot of extensive research last offseason because the Browns were specifically looking for a quarterback, right? And like if we look at, funny at the time, the gold standard was Russell Wilson, which is not, right? But you have guys here who, Jimmy Garoppolo is liable to get you, 7 and 9 bad games a season, which is crazy. 9 carry games for Derek Carr. And then, who is this? Kirk Cousins. 9 carry games here, 7 and 9 bad games. And then there's Russ. Russ was 7 bad games a year, 6 to 7 bad games a year. And then there's Matthew Stafford before this year. Remember this was done in the off season. He was at 6 to 8 bad games a year. And so on and so forth. And I think Jared Goff was at 8 bad games a year. And I think the determination was, hey, you need to be in that 6 to 7 range in order for you to be a championship level quarterback. And we look at Deshaun Watson, he's at 6 to 7. So he's in that range throughout his career. He's been an elite quarterback. He people, again, the weirdest thing is acting as if Deshaun Watson's a rookie who has not achieved anything in the NFL. He is a 27-year-old quarterback who is a former 3-time Pro Bowler. He was out the league, yes, but he did not forget how to play football. And he will eventually be back to form. That would be the bet for any other player in this situation. If Michael Vick can do 2 years in jail, real jail, no nutrition, no workout program, brother was in jail. If he can do 2 years in jail and eventually regain form at the age of 29, Deshaun Watson's more than capable of regaining form. So this ideal that he was never elite to begin with, it's only stuff you can say now because he's not playing well. But if you went back and said that about, like, you could go back now and be like, well, 2019 wasn't that impressive or 2020 wasn't that impressive. But if you said that in 2019 or 2020, you would be looked at as an idiot because everybody was watching it. You know what I mean? Like, time allows us to have a lot of dumb opinions about the past that are very uninformed because we are not in the past anymore, right? Like, this whole thing is not meant to look back with any level of accuracy. We really don't know. And what people thought at the time is usually right for what that time was when it comes to who was good and who wasn't, right? We can't look back now and be like, well, actually, he wasn't good. He was good. I don't know why people act like he wasn't. So to that premise, I just kind of reject it. But that's the question. Can Deshaun Watson be elite again? And I know he's going to regain form, but I need him to regain elite form, right? Like, he has to be as good as 2020 or better. I've said this before. He has to be better. I think so, right? Because, yes, in 2020, he was elite. And you could go a long way with a dude like him playing that well. But he also was playing in the AFC South, which, no disrespect to the AFC South, it just is not the AFC North. So a great season in the AFC South might do something for you. You're playing in the AFC North, who, best case scenario, you're playing a solid Pittsburgh team that's solid every year. You're playing Joe Burrow and the Bengals, who's still on that rookie deal, still got that roster. Two-time AFC conference championship game in a row. And then a Lamar Jackson-less Ravens team that still has a very good defense. That's your best case scenario. Worst case scenario, Lamar Jackson comes back to the Ravens, Joe Burrow right there, and Kenny Pickett develops into something. Not the range of possibility that that's the world we live in, but that's what he's going up against. So even if he plays that level, and look, that level wasn't even high enough to really elevate the horrible Texas team, and that team was horrible. And there's not much he could have really done about it because it wasn't him that was bad or the offense that was bad. It was purely the defense that just stunk and could not do anything about it. But the point still remains, which is he has to be elite. He just has to, right? I said it before. I'll say it again. For this whole thing to work out, for this thing to reach expectations, are two different things. We're going to feel like it worked out if Deshaun Watson's the quarterback for the next 10 years and maybe we get to an AFC championship game, and that'd be fine because we ain't never been there before and we just be happy to be there. But for this thing to reach expectation, they traded for Deshaun Watson because they feel like they were getting a guy that can be in the conversation with Pat Mahomes and Joe Burrow, that can be in that conversation of MVP on a consistent basis, that can be one of the top guys, right? When we talk about the AFC, we don't want to just talk about Mahomes and then Burrow. You want it to be Mahomes. There's a gap. Like, look, I'm going to keep it real with you. Nothing Deshaun Watson ever does will make him better than Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes is just a better guy, better quarterback. Like, that's just what it's going to be. Pat Mahomes is 1-1. I think he's football Jordan. But Deshaun Watson, he's more than capable of being on that tier with Joe Burrow. And what we've seen with the dude like Joe Burrow is that's good enough to beat Pat Mahomes every not every year, but that's good enough to beat him. They got to the Super Bowl. You're going to be able to get to the Super Bowl if you have a quarterback on that level. And I don't think it's impossible to think that. But we're going to spend a lot of time parsing out defensive tackle, which is important. We're going to spend a lot of time parsing out which wide receivers should be where. That's important, sure. But if Deshaun Watson is elite, it's not really going to matter. Like, if he's elite and he's throwing to Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones, we're not going to be sitting here in week 12 bitching and moaning about explosives. He will have plenty. We're not going to be sitting here bitching and moaning about red zone execution. He will be able to get it done. This is not a quarterback that we traded for with the anticipation that we needed to. This is not Baker Mayfield. Where Baker Mayfield, we all, like, no matter how sold people were, there was this underlying understanding that he was not that good, right? Like, he might have been this level of good, but he was not that good. And that's why it was important to put a great supporting cast around him, because he wasn't seen as a guy who can elevate. Deshaun Watson's a little bit different, right? We're trading for him and paying for him because the expectations are that he's going to elevate. That has to be the case. It's not going to be perfect. It can't be perfect. My big issue with Baker Mayfield was whenever it wasn't perfect, it never got done. There was always an excuse, right? That was our biggest issue with Baker. One thing go wrong, all of a sudden now you can't play quarterback. Okay. All right, man. Now we got to hear from your fans about all these excuses on why a little bit of adversity was enough to ruin this whole thing for the season. Can't live on that. So with Deshaun, I think it's fair not to do that same thing, to where it's like, okay, this year where you came back in the middle of the season, sure, man, I don't really care what happened at the end of the season that much. But next year, hey, man, we're not going to be talking about adversity being why you can't perform. The performance has to be there, right? Like, you got to be able to overcome. Like, things might go wrong. A wide receiver might get hurt. Some of your offensive linemen might go down. We gonna need you to overcome. That's what the level of quarterback play that is needed from Deshaun. Stuff is gonna go wrong, and he has to overcome it, right? This isn't gonna be a Baker Mayfield. Everybody can stay healthy. You had the greatest offensive line in football, and you just coasted. Nah, man. Like, you're gonna have to overcome something, because stuff goes wrong here all the time. So he's going to have to overcome. That's the difference, right? If he's able to overcome, if he's able to make great plays, we ain't going to give a damn about Kevin Stefanski's play calls. We're not going to care. We only complain about the play calls when we don't think the quarterback plays good. Like, that's the only time we actually care about it. And that's because the offense usually stinks when the quarterback play isn't good. It's about the quarterback. You think that Zach Taylor is some kind of genius that figured it out in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow? Or do you think Zach Taylor is the dude who gets to coach Joe Burrow? Because he is 100% the dude who is lucky enough to be in a position to coach Joe Burrow. Not saying he's not respected, not saying he doesn't contribute. I bet he does. But if he ain't have number 9, he'd be in the unemployment line. That just would be with him. You know what I mean? But that's my thoughts on that tweet, the conversation around it. Basically that's what this season boils down to, is will Deshaun Watson be elite? And I'm pretty sure at the bare minimum, he's going to be pretty good. But there's a difference between pretty good and elite. And there is a question on, even if I would say his most elite year wasn't 2020, it was really 2019. That was when he was at his so far in his career peak powers. I think was 2019. Like, he was just able to overcome everything in 2019. Can he get back to that form? And more importantly, can he get better? Because if this team wants to achieve what they want to achieve, he has to. And that's just what it is for quarterbacks that want to be elite. Let me know your thoughts.